welcome into episode 132 of The Checklist, brought to you by SecureMac. I'm Ken Ray.
I'm August Traumeter.
Do you eat at restaurants? Do you have a phone? Do you shop places? Then sadly this episode is for you. On this week's checklist, soup, salad, and a security breach, 8 of the most common phone scams around, and a smallish price for a gigantic scam. Safeguarding daily activities. This is The Checklist, brought to you by SecureMac. Buca de Beppo, Earl of Sandwich, Planet Hollywood, Chicken Guy, Mixology, and Tequila Taqueria.
I'm hungry.
Yeah, well, hold on, because I'm going to make you lose your lunch here in a second. If you've eaten at any of these restaurants in the past year, you may have gotten more than your meal. You should also keep an eye on your credit card statements and so on. According to Earl Enterprises, parent company of those eateries, Earl Enterprises recently became aware of a data security incident potentially affecting payment card information of a limited number of guests that dined at certain of Earl Enterprises restaurants. The security and privacy of our guests' payment card data is top priority, and Earl Enterprises deeply regrets that this incident occurred. First of all, I kind of want the food to be their top priority, and second, you can't say security is their top priority if it takes them a year to find out that, they were leaking data like a sieve. Because, that happened. Based on the investigation, it appears that unauthorized individuals installed malicious software on some point-of-sale systems at a certain number of Earl Enterprises restaurants. Guests that used their payment cards at potentially affected locations between the 23rd of May 2018 and the 18th of March 2019 may have been affected by this incident. What I find interesting is the company's assurances.
Yeah, it only affected customers that were, here during this span of 11 months.
Yeah, exactly. Well, roughly. I think it was like 10, but yeah, still. And then the other thing is, there are a number of things. Okay, let's go over there. Let's go over what they say first. Then we can talk more about their information site or lack thereof. What we are doing under that section, the site says the incident has now been contained and Earl Enterprises is continuing to work diligently with security experts on further remediation efforts. Moving forward, the company will continue to closely monitor its systems and take additional security measures to help prevent something like this from happening again in the future. What you can do, you can carefully review credit and debit card account statements as soon as possible for suspicious charges or activity you do not recognize. And then they go on from there. Basically, what they're saying is, we're fine and you're on your own.
I love the fact that, credit card security is their number one priority. And you kind of hit on this, but it's like, so from now on, my Amex card is completely safe, but food poisoning, that's a possibility.
In fairness, look, I actually did, and I'm kind of bummed, although I keep a really close eye on my payment methods anyway. Although, just because nothing has happened yet doesn't mean that this isn't going to come back to bite us all at some point. But I ate at one of their sandwiches last May, one of their sandwich shops, Earl of Sandwich. They claim to be the best, hot sandwich in the world. It's fine. I wasn't worried about dying, it's fine. Buca de Beppo is actually the one that sort of bothers me more, because the only time I know people go to Buca de Beppo is when they have a big group of people and they're, celebrating some huge thing. I was talking to a guy who had his wedding reception at a Buca de Beppo. It's like one of those big happy places. Just mind the fine print. So anyway, so let's do the what should you do bit, because they did go in depth on all kinds of things that honestly are the kinds of things that we've talked about here before. What's some of the stuff that they said that, sort of popped for you?
Well, this is some of the stuff they said, some of the stuff that, I think is just general good housekeeping when it comes to your own personal data. But as always, when it comes to your credit cards, make sure you review your charges, even daily, to make sure what you're paying for is what you ordered. Most problems can be nipped in the bud with just a little bit of diligence. My wife, sometimes this drives me crazy, but other times it's fantastic. She absolutely loves reviewing our charges. She does it at least once a day, sometimes twice. She's always the first one to find something out of place. And as soon as we do, we jump on it. And that's very, very handy to have somebody in your household that does that. If there are fraudulent charges on your statement or your activity, contact the bank immediately. There's usually a number to call on the back of your card. If you can't find it there, just go to the website. And if you catch this stuff in time, you generally don't have to pay for it because it's fraud and you shouldn't have to pay for it. Now, if you let it go too long, they're going to go, well, yeah, maybe you did have that dinner. But as long as you're looking on a regular basis, you're not going to have to pay for that stuff. And then you should check your credit by using one of the national credit reporting agencies. You can purchase a copy from the reporting agencies, but legally, once per year, you should be given a free copy. One of the easiest ways to do that is with annualcreditreport.com. Take a look at those reports, review anything, and look for improper charges, purchases, things that you just don't know what they are. And if you think your credit has been compromised, you can file a credit freeze with the reporting agencies. This prevents loans, credit cards, and other services being approved in your name. That said, you got to be careful. If you're looking to buy a car, a house, or that kind of thing, it can kind of get in the way. So that's something you have to balance with your personal situation.
The phone is kind of a vector of vulnerability. Business Insider ran a piece recently on the 8 most sophisticated phone scams right now the average person falls for. Now, while we tend to think that these are things that we have to warn mom and dad and the grandparents about, this is actually a problem for every demographic. Business Insider cites the Federal Trade Commission's 2017 annual data summary of consumer complaints, saying 40% of Americans in their 20s reported fraud that caused them to lose money, while 18% of fraud victims aged 70 or older said that they'd lost money to a scam. In 70% of the reported fraud cases recorded by the FTC, contact by telephone was the method of initial communication used by scammers. The ability for criminals to spoof caller IDs has only made matters worse, as people are typically more likely to answer a familiar-seeming number with a local area code. Now, this article actually goes on later to say, given how easy it is to spoof caller IDs, this is becoming more of a problem. Can we start with that? How do people spoof caller IDs?
Sure. And let me start off by saying, if somebody calls you asking for money, yeah, you don't want to talk to that guy. But it's easy to get sort of mixed up because you look at the phone number and go, oh my gosh, that's the White House. I got to answer that call.
Or we talked recently about the fact that, Apple stores were calling people, not asking for money, but asking for login information. And of course, the Apple store is not going to call you and ask for login information. The problem is bad guys were spoofing the number of the local Apple store.
Exactly. And the spoofing of caller IDs, there's a lot of different ways to do it. Some of them require a substantial investment of cash. Some of them require very little investment of cash. As a matter of fact, you and I could both do it right now for probably less than 20 cents a call, which, to be honest, is kind of crazy. But voice over IP is generally the favored and easiest way to do it. Voice over IP is basically internet used for telephony, so phone over internet. And, even some of the voice over IP packages allow you to set what number you're calling from, which is crazy. But if your VoIP provider doesn't allow you to do that, there's a number of open source software packages out there that would allow you to do this for free, which is even crazier.
Now, I don't want to throw you under the bus, but this was not something that you knew a tremendous amount about before we decided to tackle it for this episode. Is that correct?
That is correct, mostly because, I'd like to think I'm not a bad guy.
Right. Okay. So here's what's scary to me, though. Like, so you didn't know a lot about this, let's say, a few days ago before we decided, oh, this is a thing we're going to talk about. And now you're telling me that you know where we could go to do this.
Right.
That's ridiculously easy and kind of scary.
It's very scary. And, it doesn't matter whether you're trying to commit fraud or just play a prank on a friend. It's still super easy to do and really super scary.
Now, I said earlier that the phone is a vector of vulnerability. It's, just a guess on my part, but I got to figure the intimacy of the phone, right? Even if we barely talk on the phone anymore, an actual human or, human sounding voice has to weigh more heavily than, texts, emails, things like that. But of course, I'm also an audio guy, so maybe that's me. The thing that Business Insider points out is our phones are just, always there. Thanks to the rise of smartphones, nearly everybody has their device on them at virtually all times, meaning there are that many more opportunities for callers to trick you with false claims, pleas for help, or even the promise of a free vacation. Now, I said that there are 8 types of calls that are tricking most people these days, or, not most people. There are 8 types of calls that are most commonly tricking people, I guess would be the way to put it. Let's go over some of them. Starting with robocalls. What are those?
They're a lot less awesome than the 1980s movie. I will tell you that.
Yeah. It seems like it would be fun, doesn't it? It seems like that'd be great. If you told me in 1983 that, robots are going to call you, I'd be like, that's awesome. Turns out not so much.
Automated phone calls, otherwise known as robocalls, they're cheap. They're super easy to make. The New York Times says robocallers reach millions of people a day. Basically, it's just computer programs designed to call you and give you information or compel you to do something. The top robocall phone scams in March of last year, according to one call blocking site, included offers of 0% interest rates, claims of problems with consumers' credit card, and the promise of forgiven or lowered student loan debt.
So the antidote to this one, well, I guess, first of all, be wary of just, any businessy business kind of call that comes out of the blue, but also for things like, 0 interest rates or the promise of, forgiven debt. If it sounds too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. The second biggest one, IRS scams.
Yeah, it's because it's tax time, right? So now through the summer is when to watch out for these. I mean, they're a problem year round, but tax time is when they really hit. This is usually somebody calling, pretending to be an IRS agent, demanding money and threatening arrest or deportation if people don't pay. That's not how the IRS works. They've issued repeated warnings about this common scam, even noting that calls typically increase during the summer, now, tax time, and especially once the tax filing date has passed, because then you'll be overdue.
Antidote to this one, don't do anything with the person on the phone. If it sounds legit, even if it sounds legit, call the IRS. They have a website, irs.gov, and that has contact numbers and information on identifying and avoiding scams. It can be scary if somebody calls out of the blue and says, hey, you messed up, you missed this, we're sending guys to your house. And like August just said, that's not how the IRS works. So irs.gov and then call the number back. If you really are concerned that there's an issue, don't do anything with that guy on the phone. Number 3, the grandparent scam, aka the family or friend imposter.
Oh, I hate this one. I just think it's despicable in that it picks on seniors. In general, someone will call the senior and pretend to be the grandson or granddaughter. Then they'll have some crazy story where they need a bunch of money fast. Tricked seniors will end up sending a wire transfer and the scammers get to go party with the money. And I hate it. The scams are part of a family friend imposter fraud. According to the AARP, the FTC received over 10,000 complaints of this in 2015, and it's surely gotten worse since then. If you wondering how they pass as a grandchild, it's because they've already built up a profile on the kid and you as the grandparent. So they have access to a ton of information they can use to say, no, wait, it's really me, Grandma. I promise.
Yeah, I was thinking actually about the stats we ran earlier, where it was 40% of people in their 20s say that they lost money and only 17% of people over 70. I don't mean to cast aspersion, but I'm not sure that everybody over 70 would actually know. You know what I mean? I mean, they may actually think that, like, well, my grandson needed a lot of money, but I gave it to him, and I don't consider that a scam because he's my grandson, except was he really? Obviously, the antidote to this one, call your grandma when you don't need money. Please let her know what you sound like so that she won't fall prey.
And that's just always good advice anyway, right?
I guess, yeah. My grandma's not around to call anymore, so I'm not trying to guilt you into it. I'll leave that to your grandfather. How's that? Yeah. Let's see. Scam number 4. You have won a free cruise.
Woohoo! We're going to Bermuda.
Yeah,
right?
I want to go to Puerto Vallarta because the Love Boat made it sound super fine.
While these scams often come in via email, sometimes criminals still use the phone. Usually this is a phone call from an automated dialer, robocalls, asking you to provide your credit card number. And then in return, they'll give you a free vacation. But you never get the free vacation, and they get your credit card number. And it's certainly possible to win a free vacation, but just be careful. Especially if you didn't enter any sort of sweepstakes or contest to start with.
Yeah. Antidote to this one, don't give out payment info to randos on the phone. I mean, this again, and this kind of goes back to the thing you were saying about the robocallers as well, or I think the antidote that I said. I mean, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. It's weird that you would win something that would require you to pay money, although I guess that happens on The Price is Right, now that I think about it. You win that car, you're on the hook for the taxes, but at least on The Price is Right, you went to the studio and you know that you're on The Price is Right. If somebody just calls you and says, yeah, you won this thing, all I need is access to your payment information. Yeah, you haven't won much.
If you stand on a random street corner and ask every single person that walks by for $1, sooner or later, somebody's going to give you $1.
Right.
And that's what these scams rely on, is just odds. The fact that, what they're asking for sounds ridiculous to most of us, but sooner or later, they're going to find somebody who goes, well, that sounds like a great deal. And next thing they know, they've handed over everything.
I know for a fact that I have a family member who has fallen prey to one of these. So, yeah. It happens, and it's, seems ridiculous, especially once you've heard about it happening once or twice, but, maybe they hadn't heard. I don't know. Hey, we got another one that we got to talk about, though, because we got 4 more to get through. The 5th scam that worries the people at Business Insider, taking advantage of disasters.
Hurricanes, tornadoes, forest fires. Everyone wants to help when that happens, and, of course, scammers want to help themselves to that help. If someone calls asking for a donation, consider it a donation. But just like a free cruise, don't give it to the guy on the phone. Call the organization that you want to donate to and donate directly. Don't ever give your credit card information away to somebody who just randomly calls you.
Yeah, it's... Yeah. And I mean, first of all, only give to reputable charities. But then also, like we talked about with the IRS a minute ago, the Red Cross may actually call you soliciting donations. But you know what? The Red Cross has a website and the Red Cross has a phone number. And if it's something like a forest fire or a hurricane, something like that, you can go through like iTunes as well. iTunes will set up a donation page to give, to money to the Red Cross, proceeds of which will go to that horrible forest fire, that terrible earthquake, that, tsunami relief. I mean, all kinds of horrible things. It's great that people want to help, but bad guys just look for that and jump on it. Number 6, the unsolicited tech support call. How does this one go?
Someone calls, says you have a virus on your computer. They talk you through giving them control of your computer. And then they may actually install a virus or do something else. It's just crazy what people can get away with just a little bit of trust from you. And then they will tell you, oh, by the way, now that you've got that virus that I just installed, I can get rid of it, but you got to pay me.
Yeah. Of course, they're not going to tell you that they installed it, because that would kind of blow the deal, wouldn't it? Here's the thing to remember on this one. Apple is not going to call you about malware on your computer. Microsoft is not going to call you about malware on your computer. Scammers will call you about malware on your computer. So if somebody calls saying, yeah, I think there's something wrong with your computer, just, give me access and I'll tell you if there's a problem, and then, I'll fix it if there is. Hang up. Just hang up. And, and if there's a real concern about your computer, actually, we're going to be talking about that later. So I'm going to hold off on that. There's no psychic on the other end of the phone who knows that there's a problem with your computer. You'll know if there's a problem with your computer. And somebody calling you out of the blue saying they can fix it when you're not even sure there's an issue, just hang up. And finally, number 7 and number 8 are similar to the IRS scam. 7 has a scammer pretending to be from a utility company or a bank, while number 8 is convincing people that they owe a fine for not showing up for jury duty.
You get a text message where the fraudster suggests your bank has a fraud alert on one of your cards. Then they ask you to reply, giving them the PIN number or other card details, or for more banking information. It's crazy. And the jury duty scam, again, it relies on the ability to spoof numbers. They can make it look local. They can make it look like your courthouse. If you think it's a cop or some other law enforcement official calling, you can give all sorts of info. Just don't do it. Make sure just to call them back.
Yeah, I was going to say, because that's really the bottom line on all of these, isn't it?
Yeah. Really is. Make sure who you're talking to is the person you want to talk to. And they will tell you whether or not you owe money or have skipped jury duty or whatever it is. But somebody calling you to tell you that is just somebody trying to get into your wallet.
Yeah. So don't hit redial. Don't take a caller's word for anything. If it's the IRS, go to their website, find their phone number, call them back. If it's a charity, go online, find their number and call them back, or donate through their site, as long as you have verified that it is in fact their site. If it's your bank or credit card company, it's like August said earlier, their number is on the back of your card. Find it and call them back. People calling you out of the blue, that's just, it's like August said, that's just somebody trying to help themselves. A horrible story of tech support, or lack thereof. We'll get to that in a moment, but first a word about MacScan 3 from SecureMac. People used to think that Macs were immune to malware. That's not ever been the case, but it's less true today than it's ever been before. More and more people are using Macs, doing more shopping, storing more information, giving more bad guys more reasons to try to hack in. The number of malicious files for Macs has increased exponentially over the last decade. Staying ahead of the bad guys is important, and MacScan 3 can help. MacScan 3 is a great defense against malicious software attacks aimed at your Mac. It detects and removes Mac malware, catches keyloggers, removes tracking cookies, and provides full-range or targeted scanning, all without crowding up your hard drive or slowing down your machine. Say goodbye to worry with MacScan 3 from SecureMac. Sign up for a free 30-day trial today at securemac.com/MacScan. That's MacScan 3 by SecureMac. Your 30-day free trial is waiting at securemac.com/MacScan. We'll wrap the day with a really annoying story. If you can't trust Office Depot, well, I guess you can trust Office Depot now, but that's a relatively new thing. The site Bleeping Computer says Office Depot and Support.com, a tech support software provider from California, agreed to pay $25 million and $10 million respectively for allegedly tricking their customers into paying for millions of US dollars worth of computer repair services using fake malware scans. The money is going to the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, which the piece says will provide refunds to customers that were impacted by the allegedly deceptive tech support offered by Office Depot and Support.com. Here is how this worked. During an alleged diagnostic process, workers would ask the computer owner whether they had any of the following problems. Frequent pop-ups or other problems prevent me from browsing the internet. My PC recently became much slower or is too slow to use. I am often warned of a virus infection, or I'm asked to pay for virus removal, or my PC frequently crashes. Apparently, checking any one of those led to a diagnosis of malware infection, even if the machine wasn't infected. According to a blog post from the FTC, many consumers who got false scan results bought computer diagnostic and repair services from Office Depot and Office Macs that cost up to $300. Support.com completed the services and got a cut of each purchase. Frequent pop-ups, a slow machine, warnings about viruses present, frequent crashes. These are all actual real issues. That's the problem. Let's say somebody is having these. Where should these people go and what should these people do?
Well, you know, when you're looking down at your computer, it's either an Apple or it's a Windows computer. And if it's an Apple computer, you should take it to the Apple Store. If it's a Windows computer, take it to the Microsoft Store. An alternative would be to take it to an authorized repair or service company that services those and have them look at your computer. No offense to Office Depot, but or even like Best Buy, you know, that's not like the top source of where I would go if I had a problem with my computer.
Yeah, what stinks is, I mean, the way we know about this whole thing, the way we found out about the Office Depot thing is there were people who worked for Office Depot who felt terrible. I mean, there were line workers. There were people who, you know, the guy who was standing there being directed by management to ask these questions and sell this service, whether they needed it or not. That guy felt bad, or those people felt bad. And so there was a certain amount of whistleblowing before this finally came to, you know, rose to the level of attention that it ends up being $35 million worth of fines, which honestly to me seems incredibly low for such a big business. But, you know, that's a whole other thing for a whole other time. So this is not to knock the guy at Office Depot. This is certainly not to knock the guy at Best Buy, since they haven't been accused of this. And again, I have a friend who used to be this guy at Best Buy as well. I mean, those people are doing okay work, but I mean, I get why you wouldn't want to go to the Apple Store necessarily, because that just, I mean, cash registers go off every time you walk into an Apple Store. I get that too. But yeah, if your computer wasn't having a problem that took you to the store in the first place, then maybe that's not the right place to fork out $300.
You know, I think it comes down to you've got a car. It doesn't matter what brand it is, but you've got a car, and you can either take it into the dealership when you have a problem and have them look at it, or you can take it to the corner shop, you know, Bob's Garage or whatever it is, and have him look at it. And you may trust Bob. Bob may be the greatest mechanic in the world, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Bob. But if you take it into the dealership, you know, that's sort of the best you're going to get. It may cost you more, but you can pretty much be sure that it's safe.
Now, there's one other thing to mention here. This show is called SecureMac. So most people listening to this show probably know to go to an Apple store or an Apple authorized service provider to have their machine assessed. Yeah, do your mom and dad have Macs or PCs? And then, you know, what about your extended family and, you know, other friends? The other thing that I would suggest is just keep an ear out for any trouble that they're having and, you know, see if you can't point them in the right direction. And one other thing, whether you're using a PC or a Mac, run antivirus software. SecureMac is one option, but it is not the only option. We're not trying to scare you into buying something here. We're not trying to scare you into buying, you know, running reputable, respected, and well-reviewed antivirus software is a must. And neither August or I are going to say it has to be SecureMac or it has to be Norton or it has to be, you know, Kaspersky. And I'm trying to name other ones that I know to be reputable. Just have something on your computer that's watching your computer's back. And the good news is you probably don't have to worry about Office Depot doing something hinky for, I don't know, at least another 6 months. Hey, if you're looking for more security news and how-tos, the place to look is securemac.com/checklist. There you'll find notes not just for this show, but for all the shows we've done before and future shows once we get to the future. securemac.com/checklist. If you have a question you'd like to ask or a topic you'd like to hear us hit, our email address is checklist@securemac.com. The address again is checklist@securemac.com. And if you can't remember that, please do remember this. You're listening to The Checklist, brought to you by SecureMac. And we'll talk to you next week.